Hello everyone, this video will cover Module 8. So Module 8 is the halfway point of the semester. So at the end of the module, we will be halfway through the semester. This means that spring break is the next week, and over spring break, you actually have an extra week for the next module. So Module 9 will be 2 weeks long. So those of you who choose to take a little bit of a break can. The other thing that happens in Module 8 is the midpoint survey, which is an opportunity for you to give me some feedback on the class and also an opportunity to get some extra credit. So that is an option for you. So we are continuing with our poetry discussion. This is just kind of the basic readings and quiz and a little bit of writing about poetry before we get into the exam and then the next essay assignment. So the readings for this is the kind of the second half of the poetry, major poetry chapters anyway. We're covering sound, rhythm, which will be things like rhyme and meter. Involves some like scansion, which is sometimes difficult for students to wrap their heads around, which is where I take a line of poetry and divide it into its syllables and try to figure out like how many syllables did the author use, and you know, what sort of rhythm would it have when you read through it, that kind of thing. So this is a lot to do with how it sounds, which means that the poems in these chapters would be good ones to read out loud or find some readings of. The other thing that we'll cover in these chapters is closed form and open form poetry. Closed form is poems that have a specific form to them, which means that they have a specific rhyme scheme or a specific rhythm and meter scheme. And then open form includes like free verse type poems where there aren't very many restrictions. And so they're two completely kind of opposite forms of poetry. And there are lots of examples there. I've got a couple of videos in here for you. There's definitely other stuff on YouTube that you can look for. And then you have your quiz, just like we've done before. These questions just come from the readings. And they'll help you to prepare for the exam as well. And then the writing assignment in this module is to complete a journal. And this is a lot more of like personal type writing as opposed to more formal essay writing again. And in this case, we're doing a journal. A journal assignment is basically a personal discussion board. It's set up where you will create a new reply for each of the 4 entries. For each of the 4 entries, you're going to do basically 2 related to closed form and 2 related to open form. So the first 2 entries, you're going to choose a closed form poem and an open form poem, and you're going to in separate entries tell me the title and author and just a short paragraph discussing why you liked that poem, how it spoke to you, what do you think it means, just kind of a personal response. These are the types of entries where I'm not expecting your grammar to be perfect. I just need to be able to read what you've written. So kind of just basic grammar stuff. But really how you put it together as personal responses up to you. So you'll start your first entry and, click on the text box and do your first entry. And this can be kind of a free flow writing. It doesn't need to be anything real formal. And then you'll post it, and then you'll do your second entry over so you did a closed form poem first, and then you'll do an open form poem. So entry 2, and then keep going with that. There are quite a few examples within the chapters of a closed form poem versus an open form poem, and so you've got some options to look at and kind of discuss the one that you liked the best. Usually is what students pick. So then the other 2 entries, once you've done that, the other 2 entries are for you to actually write your own versions of these poems. And closed form poem would be choosing a form and then attempting to write one. I'm not grading you on your poetry skills for this one, so obviously most of you are probably beginners. You may never have written a poem before. Some of you may actually enjoy writing poetry, and that's perfectly fine. So you can pull on creative writing skills that you may have learned before. But this is the only person who's going to read this poem is me. So if it is the worst possible poem to ever appear in print, that's fine. I can promise you that I probably read worse, actually. So most students pick a haiku. haiku because it's short, but you definitely can practice with any of the poetry forms. Just make sure that you are following the requirements of that form as you write it. So, if you're going to do a sonnet, you need to have a certain number of lines, certain number of rhyming words, and they need to have a certain rhyme scheme to them, certain number of syllables per line, all of that. So it can be a little bit challenging to come up with a closed form. The open form poem is, for some students, a little bit easier because open form poetry is open, free writing. The main thing to remember is that open form poems do not rhyme. So there's no need to make it a rhyming poem. And so you need to have at least 10 lines, but they don't need to be really long necessarily. So you can have 1 or 2 words per line and have, really short kind of dramatic lines, but a little bit lengthier. It can be on any topic you want to, but I usually recommend students, if they're having trouble coming up with a poetry topic, just pick something that they like, pick something near them. You write a poem about your pen. That could be fun. So pick something that you feel something for, so that your emotions and your and just your how it fits into your life will kind of come across in the poem. If it's something that you're passionate about, usually that creates a better poem. So sometimes it can be helpful, if you write the poem, but you don't actually name the thing, and then the title is the name of the thing. So if your poem's about your dog or something, you wouldn't actually use the word dog anywhere in the poem, but by the end of the poem, we would understand that the title, my dog or whatever, is describing, the poem is describing that title. So that could be an option if you're struggling with this one. So there are 4 entries. You'll just upload them separately like I've done, and you should have 4 when you're done. Again, with all stuff in this class, you can always edit things. So if you want to kind of set up your 4 entries and then edit later, you can. And then the last thing in the module is your midpoint survey. You can take it for extra credit. It's just asking you kind of some feedback on the class, and then it does allow me to make changes to the rest of the semester if I need to. So that is Module 8. Hopefully you're doing well. You can send me an email if you have any questions, and have a great week.